Hoping everyone's having a great Saturday so far. This week, the apricot tree had all its fruit. So I've got a whole bunch of rotten and bird-pecked apricots that we're gonna feed to the worms this week. Looks like the bunch more of the butternut squash has sprouted in here. So we got a bunch more of those. It's always good to see. You know, that's nice and warm and moist in here. It looks like we got a good amount of castings ready to harvest. You know, these have to be relatively dry, otherwise they'll be full of worms. So I'm gonna get a little box and we'll pull out some of these castings. I'll just sort of sieve it through my hands a little bit. If a baby worm gets thrown in here, that's okay. But I am going to pick out any of the larger worms I'm seeing when I do this. But that is a whole box of worm castings with very minimal effort. Just because I leave that side of the bin uncovered, I don't feed on that side, so it's drier and there's not as much food, so the worms don't like to hang out there. Makes it very easy to harvest. It's one of the big benefits of this. So it looks like they didn't go through the carrot top I gave them last week, and they're still working their way through some of these avocados I fed them. But let's start by just doing the standard procedure where we kind of fluff up the castings, let them dry out a little bit more so it'll be easier to harvest next time, as well as get it to sort of discourage the worms from wanting to hang out here. They hang out here a lot more in the summer than they do in the winter. In the winter, because this is the coldest part of the bin, because there's not as much stuff being broken down. So when the bacteria break down the food, it generates heat. Now in the winter, when it's cold, they really don't like that. So this place is empty, empty, empty. They are all hanging out by the food where it's warm. In the summer, where it's hot, now this cool section is suddenly a lot more attractive. So we see a lot more of them hanging out where it's nice and cool, trying to beat the heat in the summer. So it's a little bit harder to harvest all of it, which is why I make sure I fluff it up and leave some at the top, that even though it's cool, it's too dry, they won't want to be there. So I can still get them to leave the area at least near the top where it gets the most dry. A little bit further down where the moisture stays, you can see there's still quite a few. Now, in comparison to the total population of the worm bin, there's still not that many, right? So if I really needed these castings in my garden today, I just pull this all out, worms and all, and I'd still have over 90% of my worms left. But as I don't, I only needed a little bit, I just pulled out a little bit. So I usually only need a little bit. So each week I feed them a little bit, I pull out a little bit, and it just works. Okay. So I'm gonna stack up the finished castings as high as I possibly can. That way, knock the worms down off the sides. That way these dry out. All right, next we're gonna go through some of the stuff that we fed not 2 weeks ago, but 4 weeks ago. And here we're just moving over a little bit of the stuff that's mostly broken down, if not all the way broken down. We'll move that next to the stuff that we just did. And here, if we're seeing any big pieces, we kind of throw them to the right for them to keep going. And now let's take a look at the stuff we fed last time. This one's much lower down than it was, which means they've been eaten away. So as you can see, in comparison to, you know, where the finished castings are, like this place is more worms than anything else. Like the majority of the weight I'm picking up right now is just worms. So so I'm going to, same thing, just kind of check on it. This looks, it's not, the other bin when I checked on it last week was quite wet. This one very much not the case. It's got a good level of moisture. So even here, right, this is actually all completely dry. So I'm not gonna have to add a ton of bedding this week to try to even out the wetness. We already got like a good balance. We just actually need to mix up some of the we need to make sure the cardboard we've already added is appropriately mixed up. So if anything, we might be a little bit light on the cardboard this time, because I am feeling cardboard in here that didn't get dried out at all. But fortunately, because we didn't feed them all that much last time, we have a very big feeding this time. So let's start with just a little bit of cardboard, not very much because it was so dry. Let's go in with our coffee grounds and eggshells. So here are the eggshells, just to help them grind up their food. That's what the eggshells are for. And the coffee grounds, it's a good base level of nutrition. It's like their staple, and I always feed them every week. High in nitrogen, just to keep them full in case it's a low week for food scraps, which this very much isn't. So as I said, the apricot tree was producing fruit like crazy this week, and we have a bunch of inedible fruit to feed them. So here we got all of the apricots. I just picked these up all around the base of the tree, so they're all nice and warm still. And then the block of icy food scraps from the freezer. So I mean, in the winter, I like to take these out the day before to like cool it off. In the summer, I'm totally fine with, I don't love putting in a big block like this, just because it makes it harder for them to get all of it, but I do like the fact that it's frozen. Keeps them nice and cool. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do one bit of ice on one side, and then cover it up with some of the food from last week. I'm going to do the other bit on the other side, along with a few more of the fruit, and then cover it up with some of the less broken down stuff, like so. So here I've got almost like a bit of a canyon going on, where I've got the wet fresh food all over here. Now all those fruit actually have a ton of moisture in them, so it's gonna have no problem getting this place all nice and wet. I'm going to add in this little blanket just to keep this side, keep all the moisture trapped in on this side, so it stays nice and moist. And I'm going to leave the side with the finished castings uncovered so it dries out. So next week I'll be able to harvest a little bit more, and we'll check to see how it handled that massive feeding of apricots. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.